Common Knowledge is brought to you by PureMTGO.com and InkedGaming.com. Use coupon code CCMTG10 at checkout for a 10% discount on all Inked Gaming supplies and accessories. You can support the show directly through Patreon at patreon.com/common knowledge.
This is Common Knowledge, a Magic the Gathering podcast about improving at the game with a focus on pauper play. It's not about the cost, it's about the knowledge. Welcome to Common Knowledge. Here are your hosts, Brandon Clark and Lobbert. Enjoy this week's episode of Common Knowledge.
How's it going, everybody? Welcome to episode 37 of the Common Knowledge podcast. I am your host, Brandon Clark, and joined with me forever and for always is Sean the Lobbert.
What's up, man?
Not much. How you doing?
It's a good week. I got this new lighting system for the people on YouTube. I think I'm a little bit bleached, but I'm doing really good. How are you?
Nice. I'm doing good. I thought I had something fun that I wanted to share with you guys, but I can't remember it. So, I don't know. I'm doing fine. This week, our main topic will be using your graveyard and how you can get advantages out of your graveyard and what disadvantages might exist and such. But first, we're going to go into our What Are We Playing segment. And we're going to do it a little differently this week because we got an email from a listener, and as you know, when we get those, we like to read them. So we're going to kind of tie his email into our What Are We Playing segment this week and just kind of have a little fun with it. Or I'm going to have a little fun with it.
We both are.
Sean's a grumpy grump.
Just being realistic, bro.
So let's see. Our email is from Harry Dinley, or Dinley, I don't know. I'm sorry. However you say your name, but he says, suppose your LGS held a pauper event with no ban list. How degenerate a deck would you make? What specifically would you guys take? So obviously I would be as degenerate as I possibly could, and I would put 4 Treasure Cruise in my deck.
Mm-hmm.
But I would also play a Storm deck.
Wouldn't everyone?
No, people would play fun stuff. There would be fun. There would be Infect. There'd be all sorts of fun stuff. Not everyone's so spiky like you, Sean, and just wants to win.
You're playing Storm. If I wanted to win, I would also just play Storm.
Because I love Storm.
Well,
it also would just happen to be the best deck in the format.
Yeah, it would.
But it's not because of that. It's because I love Storm.
Okay.
So Sean's answer was he wouldn't.
No, okay. Let me explain my own answer. I'm not interested in things like that. Like, maybe, like... So, my real answer is that I would probably play a deck like my Emerge Brew that just has tons and tons of counterspells and try to get it even lower to the ground and put in a whole bunch of, like, Spell Pierces and stuff like that, just to not lose to counterspells and, like, Infect. And
so you would just play all the cards that are already in the format anyway to try and beat all the degenerate things that everyone else is playing.
Well, I would also play Treasure Cruise.
Now you're feeling the spirit.
Like, yeah, Treasure Cruise and maybe like Peregrine Drake or something like that. Maybe. I don't think I would actually play Peregrine Drake. I don't think Peregrine Drake actually holds up.
Mental Misstep's not a common, is it?
No, it never was.
Okay, so we don't even need to worry about that. Good.
And I think in that kind of meta, I don't even think a cranial plating... I was looking at the ban list, and I was like, could I play a cranial plating list? And I actually don't think you could. I think you would just be too slow trying to attack.
Interesting.
But I would just try to say no as many times as possible to the broken things people are doing. Like, just play the grindiest control deck ever.
I don't know if that could work. I don't know. It would just be too much to try and control, you know?
Yeah.
I think to answer this question from a actual serious standpoint, because we are about winning games of Magic, and so hypothetically, if this was a real thing, I think that the right answer would just be find the most degenerate deck you can play and be better at playing it than your opponents are at playing their deck.
Yeah,
I
but
think
I
that's
would still
probably the answer.
I would still be trying to have fun, like, and that would look like just tons of counter spells and like a dinky little win con. Like, it might just be something like, I don't want to say blue-black control because I don't want to play that many kill spells. I don't want things to get past the stack.
Sure, that's fair.
So it would be something more like, you know,
what are you thinking your win condition is?
I mean, like
Probably,
a Drifter.
you could probably just have like you could probably just work in a combo finish with like Cloud of Fairies and your Peregrine Drake.
Well, there's that deck, but I really think I would play something like my Emerge Brew where I can just throw out
play a 2/2 on turn 1 and
play turn 1, turn 3, doesn't matter. Just eventually I'm going to get there, and if everyone's playing Storm, like, just try to get the key spells, and I think that could work, and that deck actually works decently well against an Infect list, I think. But that's what I would be on. Like, it wouldn't be the strongest thing in the meta, and it doesn't support Treasure Cruise as good as well as, like, a whole bunch of other decks. But it sounds like the most fun in that meta.
Okay, sweet.
See, I'm not a grumpy old curmudgeon, and...
Well, you are, but... I wouldn't. / 300 counters plus Treasure Cruise. That was Sean's answer. So thank you, Harry, so much for the email. We love hearing from our listeners, even if it's just fun stuff like that, you know? It's kind of fun to think hypothetically, like, what would we do?
Yeah.
It was kind of fun. So cool. That's the What Are We Playing segment of the show. Let's jump on into our Card of the Week segment. Sean, why don't you take this one for us?
So I chose for the second week in a row a colorless spell, like I do. It's Viridian Longbow. If you're not familiar with Viridian Longbow, it is a 1-mana artifact. It's an equipment that has an equip cost of 3. It gives your creature the ability to tap and do 1 damage to any target. The reason I think this card is significant is just its colorless, repeatable removal.
I was going to say, I don't like this card.
You don't like this card?
Nope.
Why not?
I hate it. It makes my Spellstutter sprite bad.
Oh, that's a good sign.
No, this card is... I don't like this card because this card is very good. If I was playing a deck that wanted a card like this, Viridian Longbow is a phenomenal answer to a lot of things in the format. And it being a repeatable source is what makes it so powerful. It's not a one-and-done deal. It's every time you untap, you're getting this effect over and over again. Or, I don't know, you have 6 mana. Slap it onto something, ping. Slap it on something else, ping. You know, you can kill a couple things in one turn, or you can stack that up to kill something big.
Yeah, I've locked a lot of opponents out of the game by just having dinky creatures, and then this spell. Like, one of my favorite things to do is equip it to a creature, ping something or not, like ping them for 1 damage, and then when I untap the next turn, it's already equipped to a creature, ping, and then move it to the next creature, then ping again. You can block and ping. Like, this is I love how much utility this card has, and it can just lock people completely out of the game.
Yeah, it's one of those cards that when it hits the board, dramatically changes the way your opponent needs to now play the game of Magic. It just changes all the rules, like you said. It changes the rules of combat. You know, it changes what kind of creatures they can realistically try to put into play. If they're like me and they're trying to fall on Spellstutter Sprite to get value, you're just going to get pooped on. They're going to 2-for-1 you all day.
It does some pretty nutty things in, like, the dominant place you see this is Elf decks, and you also see it in Stompy. Yeah. And I don't think you see it in Stompy near as much as you used to, like, a year ago, in, like, sideboards. But the reason is both of those play both Nettle Sentinel and Kyrian Ranger. If you can equip a Nettle Sentinel, tap it to deal damage, play another green creature, deal another damage, and then untap it with Kyrian Ranger, like, Nettle Sentinel, like, that combo just means you're dealing damage on your turn, you're dealing damage on your opponent's turn, and you're doing it multiple times. I just wanna gush about this card. Like, it's one of my favorites. I've won a lot of games with this card.
How do you gush with this card? I don't know that I've ever seen this card in a deck that can play gush.
Float your mana, equip.
Tap your mana, equip, gush.
It is
I was really stretching there to try to make a joke about gush when you said that.
Some quick other things. It is mana intensive. That can be a good thing. Like if you just have a bunch of creatures, a bunch of mana, you can just equip, and just wipe the field. And it is tutorable with Trinket Mage. So that's the main way that I get this into play most of the time, is just find it with Trinket Mage and play it.
Yeah, I think the other big thing that I really like about Viridian Longbow is the fact that it's often the only artifact in your 75.
Yeah.
And so it makes your opponent's sideboarding really awkward because they're kind of faced with this, how do I deal with this longbow? You know, do I have access to something that can kill it? And then at that point, they're boarding in a really bad card otherwise to deal with this one card. I don't know, my Eld's opponent just could not draw a Viridian Longbow in a game, and I have my Artifact Hate in my hand instead of being able to answer what he's presenting on board. And so I really like game-changing cards like this that also make it awkward for your opponent to try to answer.
Mm-hmm.
I mean, obviously, I can just counterspell the Viridian Longbow if they don't make it on turn 1 or 2 or something, but like that's not really what I mean. Like, you can answer this card, but to do it effectively, you know, I need to bring in a piece of artifact removal, and that just seems really bad against Elves or Stompy.
You touched on the fact that this can come down turn 1 before they have anything to deal with it on the stack, and then they have nothing to deal with it
for the rest of the game.
For the rest of the game, and they just have this weird advantage of every threat they play can do this broken thing.
Yeah. I don't know, and I think it does raise a good question that if your deck is that susceptible to Viridian Longbow, do you just do it? Do you just bring in your Artifact Hate preemptively, knowing that they probably will have a Longbow and you have to answer that card? I think that you do, and you just got to kind of hedge your bets, but it's awkward and it's not a feel good scenario.
It is really grindy, so I don't know. I think that's one of the reasons Stompy ended up taking it out, is because they don't really want to grind against Delver or something like that. That's where it's really, really good.
I feel like I've seen a lot of Scattershot Archer in sideboards too, more often than Longbow, because I don't know, Scattershot Archer can just deal 1 damage to all the flying creatures, which is, you know, sometimes effectively a Green's version of Electricity in this format. So
that's a good way.
I think I've been seeing a lot more Scattershot Archers than Longbows lately, but there are a lot of really good upsides for Longbow that Scattershot Archer doesn't have, I think.
And
it being so hard to kill is the biggest one.
I do think that it's not seeing as much play as it used to be. That's kind of another reason why I want to do it for Card of the Week. It might be justified that they're not playing it as much, but this is still just like one of my favorite things. And of course, you can always put it on a Death Touch creature and just have repeatable, just conditionless kill spells, which is pretty cool. Like, it never happens, but it's cool.
Yeah. So I always forget about that interaction with Death Touch. And there was a spoiler today for the new Ravnica set. It's not relevant to Pauper because I don't think the card was a common, but someone posted a picture of the card next to Goblin Chain Whirler, which deals 1 damage to all creatures, or all opponents' creatures, and then their planeswalkers, and then them. And the card was like, give a creature +1/+1 and Death Touch till the end of turn. And I'm sitting here thinking, like, do people think this is good because it counters Goblin Chain Whirler? Like, that seems really bad that I'm going to have this card in my deck to give my X1 creature +1/+1 to dodge Chain Whirler. And then I I clicked open the thread to be like, why do people excited about this? And everyone's like, oh my gosh, wipe their board.
Yeah.
And I was like, oh yeah, death touch. You give the chain whirler death touch, and
That's kind of insane.
that is kind of funny, yeah. But I always just forget about that interaction. And so I think it's just kind of funny that you brought that up here when I was actually just dealing with that earlier today. Cool. Anything else?
Nope. Are you ready for the main topic?
Yeah, let's move on into the main topic. Using your graveyard. So kind of the first bullet topic that we kind of want to touch on with utilizing your graveyard is, where possible, don't be too reliant on it unless what you're doing is so inherently broken that the risk is warranted. When you utilize your graveyard in such a way that you're opening yourself up quite a lot to getting blown out by sideboard cards or by hate. It's very easy for your opponent to just have a Relic of Progenitus, and your life is going to be really, really difficult.
Yeah, I think that's like the number one reason why Tortured Existence isn't like a meta deck, is because it just has this weakness that a lot of people are just playing anyway. Like, it's not like Gorilla Shaman where, you know, you might not see Gorilla Shamans and so Affinity comes back. It's people just pack their graveyard hate because Tron exists and because Blue-Black Control exists. And so then you walk into the tournament being like, I hope they don't have it. And they do. And like, that's a very powerful deck that if you don't have it, you almost just can't win. But if they do, you just lose.
Yeah. Punched my mic. Yeah, and I think that Relic of Progenitus is kind of the best one. Some of these other like one-time effects, like say Bojuka Bog, I think are a little less good. Just because that Bojuka Bog obviously is one time, it's sorcery speed, whereas the Relic, you always have that threat of activation, and so it makes it really hard on your opponents. You know, a card like Fairy Macabre is also, I think, a really good source, but I don't know if I've ever seen anyone play a Fairy Macabre.
It's super rare. Like, for the most part, people don't, but then every once in a while they will. Like, it's actually really good at the things it does, but it's just not enough for most people like myself. I would just rather nuke a whole graveyard. Like, I end up running Relic pretty much every time.
Yeah.
Even when I'm running black, I don't run the Nihil Spellbomb.
Just because Relic is just much easier to activate?
Yeah, both of them get artifacts, or both of them get a card, and one of them can do it repeatably, like just get one card out of your graveyard repeatably. If you have two of them, you really start making some progress there, while Nihil Spellbomb is just once.
Sure.
The upside is that it's only their graveyard. That's why you play Nihil Spellbomb.
Yeah, like you said, Relic, if you get Relic into play on turn one, sometimes you can just manage their graveyard with just tapping it once per turn. And you don't need to ever activate it unless they actually do try to go for something. And so I think that Relic is just strictly better. Unless you are very reliant on your graveyard, then I can understand Nihil Spellbomb. But so kind of going with this, not being too reliant on your graveyard, there are some strategies that are very all-in on their graveyard, and I think there are some things that they can do to mitigate the damage of these exile effects. And one of those things is playing Dredgers. Recently, I don't know if you've seen this deck list, but there is a black-red Reanimator deck going around that has 4 copies of
Stinkweed Imp.
Stinkweed Imp, yeah. And I was playing against that deck online, and I got a turn 1 Relic, and, you know, they did their thing, Faithless Looting, pitched an Ulamog's Crusher and a Dragon's Breath, but then they just cast the Stinkweed Imp on turn 3. And now I have to deal with the Stinkweed Imp. And then I kill the Stinkweed Imp, and now it's like, do I pop my Relic now? And then let them untap with like 4 mana? And I don't have a Relic anymore to protect me? And so it creates this new angle to play on for the deck where they will consistently have a steady stream of threats. At the same time, they're not all in on their Exhume package. And so it puts you in an awkward position where you have to try to deal with that or, not. And eventually what ended up happening is he had 2 Stinkweed Imps. I killed them both and then popped my relic. And then he untapped and just went like faithless looting Exhume.
Yeah, most of the time, what I've found in that situation is you just keep killing the Stinkweed Imps. Like, you never pop the relic until they're going to do something broken with their graveyard. And however awkward that is for you, it's way more awkward for your opponent. Like, they're milling 5 cards is a lot of cards out of your library. They can only do that so many times, and I've run a lot of people out of cards in their libraries. Like, even when they hit like 15 cards left, they stop making that decision, like, pretty consistently. So I think just the threat of relic popping, they have to figure out, like, okay, well, I'm gonna finally Exhume here, and then you pop it. But I think you kind of hit on, like, even fetch lands or Ash Barrens can make you get behind. Like, typically 1 card a turn is going into the graveyard. If you can make that 2, then when you play your payoff spell, they have to pop that relic. You're not going to get the payoff spell because they just countered it with relic. So it kind of becomes this weird, like, mind game,
Yeah, it's interesting. So there are definitely ways where these decks can power through the graveyard hate, but for the most part, like you said, you just kind of gotta hope they don't have it, and if they have it, they have it. I think that's just what you sign up for when you put, especially a card like Exhume into your deck.
And this isn't necessarily the graveyard. I think graveyard falls into a whole class of decks.
Mm-hmm.
Like, not decks, but like elements of a deck. Like enchantments, artifacts, like
it's sort of like a subgenre of an archetype. Like a lot of decks can manipulate the graveyard, but they're not necessarily graveyard decks, so to say.
Yeah, and the best uses of the graveyard are little splashes. You don't want to be a graveyard deck. You want to be a deck that uses a couple of cards in your graveyard.
Yeah.
It disincentivizes your opponent from actually bringing in a relic. Like, do you really want to bring in a relic against blue-black control?
I do, every time.
Yeah, you do, but it's not this blowout. It's like an incremental advantage thing.
Sure, yeah. It's not like against an Exhume deck where I have relic and I'm pretty safe. It's more like I pop this relic now while he's tapped out so that he can't flash back the Forbidden Alchemy in his deck. And I don't know. I guess it's not really a trade because like they drew a card off their Forbidden Alchemy. You traded a relic for the Forbidden Alchemy in their graveyard and then drew a card to replace it. But
plus all the tempo that stopping the Gurmag Angler just gave you.
Yeah, that's true. That's true too.
Plus, if there was any edicts or anything like that in there, like that's just icing.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
Before we move on from like the graveyard hate section, I do want to just talk about Very Macabre is actually, I think it is a little underplayed.
Mm-hmm.
Because some people, when they need to hate a graveyard, they only need to counter like specifically Ghostly Flicker. That's like the biggest one.
Yeah, and having an instant speed, uncounterable way to do that, I think is crucial, especially against Tron, where they can always fight over your counter spells with counter spells of their own,
or fight over your relics, like, right?
Yeah. Tron just has a lot of ways to not care about your graveyard hate and ways to get around it.
If you have black mana, it can come down as a creature, but that's never the mode you want. So I think just keep that in mind. But let's move on to actually using your graveyard.
Okay. So what I love the most about graveyard decks is they give you a toolbox, and toolbox decks are always some of my favorite decks to play. I just like I don't want to say false sense of security, but just like the feeling of having options. Mm-hmm. For any given matchup, I can Court of Calling to go get my whatever reclamation sage to blow up your thing, or I can, go find whatever I want. I really like that. And being able to use cards out of your graveyard gives you that toolbox. It's almost like your graveyard becomes an extension of your hand when you have a lot of these flashback spells.
Like, yeah, if you have an earth in your deck, then every creature in your hand can just be on the battle. Well, every creature in the graveyard can just be on the battlefield. If you need to lock them out with Chittering Rats, you can, or you can draw a card. Like, that's super strong.
They just give you so many options for what you're doing with your mana that turn. And when, for more experienced players, typically the more options you have over your opponent, the more likely you are to win your game.
And Tortured Existence is like the epitome of that, isn't it? Like, you can do that any number of times, and you put your Dredger in the yard every time, so your options just get bigger and bigger. You can play a Caustic Caterpillar, like a one-of, and blow up all of their artifacts as many times as you need to.
Or like a single Spore Frog.
Yeah.
You just get to put all these fun of one-ofs in your deck. And it's really fun. And what I like Tortured Existence quite a bit too, because Tortured Existence can get around relics quite well. If they go for it and they pop your relic and you've got some critical creatures in your graveyard, you can always just discard some unneeded creatures to change them, switch them up. I'll put these things that I don't need in my graveyard. I don't know, Spore Frog's not necessary in this matchup. I'll put that in my graveyard and get back my, I don't know, something that would be good in a matchup where Spore Frog's bad.
Stinkweed Imp, I don't know.
Stinkweed Imp, yeah. Get back my Stinkweed Imp. And then you just start over. Mm-hmm. I like Tortured Existence. And I would consider it card advantage to answer your question.
Yeah, I've written here on the show notes, is Tortured Existence card advantage? Because you do have to work to get Tortured Existence to be, I would say, even not disadvantage. You have to work a little bit.
Yeah. Like, once you get the engine going, you have such a huge advantage over your opponent in terms of just the amount of cards you have access to, in terms of inevitability.
You can kind of just bump up the power level of every card in your hand, because like, I drew my 1-drop. I would rather have a 4-drop, thank you.
Yeah. Yeah, it gives you card selection. I think Tortured Existence is card advantage. But I don't know. I also consider a lot of things card advantage. So I consider tempo card advantage and all that stuff.
Like, but when you first play Tortured Existence, you've used a card in your hand to do nothing. Mm-hmm. And then the second time, like the first time you activate it, you're just swapping 2, and unless it's like a madness creature that is neutral, if you're upgrading the quality of your card, then that's a little bit. And then there's like the outright like divination level card advantage of like Grave Scrabbler, right?
Yes. Oh gosh.
Divination plus, because you get to choose.
I was watching someone play against a Tortured Existence deck, and they kept blocking their opponent's Grave Scrabblers and trading with them in combat. And I was like, just take the damage from Grave Scrabbler. Don't let it go back to the graveyard.
Yeah, okay. Tip for everyone.
I wanted to strangle him after the game, and afterwards I was like, what were you doing? And he was just like, I didn't even think about it. But yeah, you're right.
Yeah, you just leave those things on the battlefield as long as possible. They want them in the yard or in their hand. Mm-hmm. They don't want them on the battlefield, even though that's where they end up.
Well, I guess I don't even want to say he was trading with them. He had Spire Golems in play. And he was eating them with Spire Golems. And I'm just like, just race him with your 3 Spire Golems!
Yeah. You just... it sucks, but you just take the damage.
Yeah.
Unless
but
you
then
can exile
eventually the Tortured Existence player got Brown Scale going, and at that point it was just... Ugh. Oh, goodness sakes. Shout out to Guy. I can't remember his Twitter handle. I was going to call him by his Twitter handle, but I can't remember his Twitter handle. You know who you are.
So there's like 2 more cards I want to talk about with like toolboxing your graveyard. One is Pulse of Marasa, because I think that's one of the biggest ones that you see. Pulse of Marasa is just like icing on icing of like you get your life gain and you get your card out of your yard. The best one, right? At instant speed, so you untap and you play it. Not much to say about that. It can be fizzled. Like, I wouldn't say you want to play tons of Pulse of Marasas most of the time if you're also doing graveyard strategies. And then Reaping the Graves. I think Reaping the Graves is an underplayed card.
What does that card do again?
It's a storm card.
Yeah, it's 2 and a black, right?
Yeah, 2 and a black, storm, instant speed, return a creature from your graveyard to your hand. So your opponent plays 2 cards, and then you play it on their turn, counts your opponent's storm, so you get 3 creatures back. That's
interesting. That's really cool.
Yeah, people play it in like off-color decks sometimes. Like I've seen this in...
Wasn't it like in Elves or something?
Boros Monarch.
Monarch, that's the deck that was doing it. That's right. I remember that. I remember that now.
I've seen it in Affinity too. They just wait for their opponent to like play a couple spells, maybe tap out by playing like 2 or 3 spells, and they just get back 3 Mirror Enforcers and their ATOG, and they're just like, Enforcer, ATOG. And you're just like, oh.
You lose now because, yikes. That sounds fun. That's
yeah,
a spicy little nugget.
It's not altogether great, but I think that's one of those cards that has potential, but isn't there yet in any deck. It is good in Familiars.
Yeah, I'll agree with that.
That's it for our toolbox. Do you want to talk about 2-for-1s?
Yes. So these are cards that basically are Snapcaster Mage, right? Like Stormbound Geist is basically Snapcaster Mage, and Young Wolf is basically Snapcaster Mage, and Archaeomancer is literally Snapcaster Mage. Like they're the same card. They're a 2/1. They do something with an instant or sorcery in your graveyard. They're both wizards. They're literally the exact same card.
Yeah, it's Pauper Snapcaster Mage. You don't even have to cast at the same turn.
Boom. Better than Snapcaster Mage. Get that card out of here with your garbage Snapcaster Mage. Your Tiago Saperitos. I think that's the guy. Do you even know?
No.
Do you even know what I'm talking about?
Is that the guy that it was made after or made the card?
I think so. Or it's Tiago Chen.
I think Chen sounds
I think it's
familiar.
Tiago Chen. That's who it is. I think. I don't know. Get that card out of here, because Archaeomancer is the real deal, man.
Yeah,
Archaeomancer is what's what.
You can't go infinite with Ghostly Flicker and Snapcaster Mage, can you?
No, because Snapcaster makes it get exiled. So strictly worse.
Strictly, that's the word. That's definitely the word to use there. But I think one of the gosh. I think Stormbound Geist and Young Wolf are like, they don't stay in the yard. They don't need things to be in the yard. They just touch it for a minute. And I think that's one of the best ways to actually use your graveyard is like, you really have to hedge against that hate. And things like Stormbound Geist really do that. Like they can be hit by like a Relic of Progenitus, but you're typically playing so many Ponders and Preordains that you can't just tap it and activate it.
Yeah, your opponent literally has to crack their Relic. And I don't know, if they trade their Relic for my Stormbound Geist, I'm okay with that. Like, it just means that they had a Relic in their deck, which against most Stormbound Geist decks is probably incorrect.
Yeah.
I mean, unless they're like a Archaeomancer deck, which I've seen weird things like that, but I'm thinking about where you're going to see Stormbound Geist the most often, which is Delver Mirrors, and I don't think that Relic is where you want to be in a Delver Mirror just to counter their Stormbound Geist.
Yeah, I'd say definitely. There's not much to talk about those, just that's a safe way to use your graveyard, and it's a 2-for-1. Stormbound Geist is one of the most powerful cards in our format. Yeah,
best card ever printed. Basically Snapcaster Mage.
Stop it. Stop.
Isn't that what we're supposed to do? Make bad comparisons to modern cards?
Sure.
I thought that was the rule.
Yeah.
Custody Squire is basically, well, I don't know. There's nothing like Custody Squire. That card's dumb. One day we'll be comparing modern cards to Custody Squire, not Custody Squire to modern cards.
Oh, okay.
Because Custody Squire is just ahead of the game. It's just out of this world.
It's just too many things that it can get back.
Oh yeah, it's crazy, and it doesn't target him. It just votes for him. Because I don't know if you ever do something where you're like, you're a graveyard hex proof. Because I'm sure that'll happen one day.
Oh, no. It's Eternal Witness.
Oh my gosh, it's better than Eternal Witness because it's a foul.
It's a 3/3.
It's a 3/3?
Yeah, it's flying though.
Dang, Daniel.
They're not gonna print Sarah Angel with freaking upside.
I thought they did. All right, this card's not as good as I thought. This card's actually just the worst.
Dice to Bolt. GG.
Yeah, get it out of here. This is the segment of the show where I'm just ready for us to wrap up.
Yeah, like, I don't think this is, like, the deepest topic that we've ever covered. Like, the main part of the show is, like, don't overdo it. Like,
yeah,
if you have too many cards with Undying, Flashback, and you're just like, look at all my card advantage, that could all just go away.
And if you are going to go all in on this, make sure that what you're going all in on is something very powerful. Like I plan on best case scenario having an Ulamog's Crusher with haste on turn 2, and you get no permanence for the rest of the game. But at the same time, when you do something like that, you just got to accept that you're going to lose a lot of games to your opponent's turn 1 Relic of Progenitus.
And I think they do have the backup plan of playing like Gurmag Angler at a reasonable time. Mm-hmm. And they've hedged against that by playing like, Stinkweed Imp, Gurmag Angler. Like, it's not just that. If it was just that, it would just lose.
Yeah, I think that this innovation for the Red-Black Reanimator deck of trying to play Stinkweed Imps and casting Gurmag Anglers, I think is really powerful. I've played against Reanimator decks and lost where they just never, ever cast an Exhume. They just kept recurring Stinkweed Imps. I ran out of ways to kill the Stinkweed Imps eventually. They eat away all my creatures. I can't attack into Stinkweed Imps, and all the while they're beating me with Gurmag Angler. Mm-hmm. Sometimes they just don't even need to play the graveyard, and then that adds another angle of my opponent just boarded in dead cards. They had their Relic on turn 1, but all it did was slow down my Gurmag Angler a bit. So that's it. Using your graveyard.
We didn't talk about Flashback.
What's that? Oh, that's that crappy ability that exiles on that strictly worse card than Archaeomancer, right?
Snapcaster, yeah.
Poopcaster Mage. More like it.
You can't say that.
Poop. ASMR. Poop.
The reason why I want to talk about Flashback is it's also like one of those passive ways that you can use your graveyard. Like, I think cards like Auramancer just fall to the trap of they're not good on their own, and if their graveyard half just doesn't work, then that's a bad card. But a lot of the time, think twice is fine. If you get the upside the second half, then it's great. Mystical Teachings is good. Second half is great.
Yeah.
Moment's Peace, Chainer's Edict, Forbidden Alchemy.
And again, those are all things that you're okay trading with the Relic of Progenitus because you've already gotten value out of them. I've already gotten a card out of all these things in my graveyard, and now I just got a card out of you. And I mean, granted, my opponent gets a card back, but I gotta think that you're still ahead in the exchange, or at least getting there.
Yeah. Weird thing I noticed with my Corrupt Control deck, I'm literally playing 4 cards that use the graveyard. They are all Chainer's Edict. And I see relics all the time. People just have so many ways so many cards they need to take out of their deck, like specifically removal spells, that they are just like, well, I saw a Chainer's Edict. Maybe he has something else. Let's bring in a relic. And so...
Yeah, and I'm all on board with that plan too. If I don't know, against Blue-Black Teachings, I would rather have a Relic of Progenitus than a random cantrip from the Delver side.
Yeah. Or like, what about Lightning Bolt? Do you feel like cutting some number of Lightning Bolts? You're just like, Skred's good enough against Angler, and I don't know, something like that?
I would definitely cut out. You definitely cut out all the Lightning Bolts. And then, like, from there you start cutting Ponders and stuff.
I find it to be more of a weakness than a strength, unless it's like the tiniest splash. It's a great way to put that little extra bit of card advantage, but if it's like, I get all my card advantage out of the graveyard, that's really bad.
I mean, it can be really good. You know, sometimes you just don't see graveyard hate. That is putting
true.
all your eggs into that basket. It's a high risk, high reward type of situation, you know. And at the end of the day, you just gotta be okay with losing to Relic of Progenitus a couple times, because it's gonna happen a lot. But you're also gonna have a lot of draws where they don't find their relic, and they have to beat Nulamog's Crusher.
So let's do something fun.
You don't do fun things. You're grumpy.
You're way more grumpy than me, like the majority of the time, Brandon.
It is known.
So I'm just gonna go down the last week's Pauper Challenge and just see how much graveyard hate was in the top 8.
Oh, that would be interesting to see. I'm gonna guess. I'm gonna take the under on 2.
2 spells or 2 decks?
2 spells.
Okay.
I'm gonna take the under on 2 spells. Like, there will be one deck that has 2 pieces of interaction, or there will be 2 decks that each have 1 piece of interaction. But I'm gonna take the under on 2.
So I've already started looking, so I don't think it's fair for me to participate.
Okay.
But everyone at home, pick a number. You can't go over. How many do you think is in there? So there's none in the top 3 decks.
Oh, come on.
4th place deck has 1 Relic of Progenitus.
Okay, come on. 4 more to go. Come on. 1 out of 4. I like those odds.
There is 1 spell, and it was that Relic in 4th place.
Yeah. So bust out your Exhumes, because it's time to get some free wins.
But 9th place has 2 relics. But that wasn't in the top 8. Like, randomly people like me will just have 3.
Let's do it again with the top 16.
Okay.
So we know that there's 4. I'm going to bet that there are...
No, we know there's 3. There's 1 relic in the top 8. 9th place has 2.
I thought you said there were 3 in the 9th
No, it said
place.
I will randomly run 3.
Oh, okay. Sorry, yeah. So we know that there's 3. I'm going to say... I'm going to say 6.
So 11th place has a Crypt Incursion. We're up to 4.
Okay. Is that it? Just 4?
Yeah, there's 4.
Wow.
So, like...
I feel like that is just like criminally low for, you know, how much of a player that Tron is in this format. I feel like that alone, like when I'm thinking about building a sideboard and I'm looking for that 14th and 15th slot, I'm thinking like, I guess I could always just put a relic in here for Tron.
Yeah, I think a lot of people just don't play... Like, I don't think they have to. Like, I think that the way they deal with Tron is some other way, and it might be... I've always brought in a lot of relics against Tron, and that's how I deal with them. But it could just be you counter their instant speed spells because you're probably blue, or you go under them and you don't want something bogging you down like a relic that you just have to spend 2 mana on. Like, it's just this weird speed bump.
Sure, that makes sense. That makes a lot of sense.
I think the name of this episode is like, try not to use your graveyard, but now might be a good time to, and don't.
Yeah, for the next couple weeks, exhume away.
But the thing is, that exhume deck still falls to counterspell.
Yeah, but I mean, so does everything that doesn't play counterspell itself. Like, that's just what you sign up for when you don't put blue cards in your deck, is that My opponent has counterspell and I don't, and they're going to counter my spells.
Not if you decentralize your plan. Like if your plan is like 4 anglers, 4 exhumes, and you're never casting anything else besides like a 1/2 with death touch. Not even death touch, pseudo death touch. That's why I can't get behind that deck. I think Tortured Existence takes too long to play, but I think there are other graveyard decks that could make.
Yeah, you have to be a madman to play Tortured Existence on Magic Online. Like if you go through a list of like Tortured Existence bad matchups, MTGO is one of those matchups.
Number 1, just because of time.
Yeah, just the sheer amount of time it takes to win. I mean, I see people struggle to win with that deck in paper tournaments. You know, their game 1 goes to turns. Like, what are you doing to yourself, man? Why are you doing this?
I'm using my graveyard.
Sean told me not to. Holy goodness sakes. Alrighty, well that was Common Knowledge. Episode number 37. Tiga Pulu Tuju for our Indonesian friends.
What the...
Thanks for listening. Oh no, we have to do an outro. I'll do an outro. So thank you guys for listening. If you want to support the show, you can do so at patreon.com/common knowledge. And again, we're just $15 away from our first stretch goal. So let's make that happen because we really want to play 5-card blind.
Yeah.
I think what we're going to try to do, I don't even know if I want to talk about this because I don't want to make a promise that we can't keep. But I think what we want to try to do is we want to try to record these matches that we're playing. And we want to me and Sean actually want to play them out in paper, you know? Yeah. I think between Sean and I, we have enough of the pauper format that realistically we could do that. And if we can't, then I guess I'll spend $1 to pick up your weird 5-card blind deck for this tournament. But I think we want to try to do that. We want to try to record it somehow. We're not going to release everything in one stretch. We're maybe going to go like week by week, like set it up into brackets. And week 1 we'll do bracket A, and then we'll do bracket B, and then we'll do bracket C, and then we'll do our quarterfinals and our semifinals or whatever, and then finally our bracket or however it'll set up.
Yeah.
And so you guys are going to get to see all the games, all the decks, and then at the end, of course, we're going to have fun prizes and all the great things for you guys for participating. So yeah, we're so excited about this. So guys, get us there. $15, please.
And if you're like, I don't care about 5-card blind, I don't have time for another tournament, I can't take time out of my schedule, it's literally just submitting a deck list, a 5-card deck list.
Yep.
with free entry.
Yep.
That sounds like fun.
I guess that's the other thing I need to mention. This isn't Patreon exclusive. So if you're not a patron of the show, you can still enter. So nudge your friend in the ribs and say, hey, give those wackos $15 so I can play 5-card blind.
Yeah, and I think it'd be a fun thing for our whole community to just, like, it would add a lot of people to our community because I think that would be something I would be super happy to, like, advertise the crap out of.
Yeah. See, other ways you can support us, though, if you don't care about 5-card blind and you don't want to give us your monies, go to the CCMTG YouTube page and like and subscribe there. Support the network that supports us, and it's the circle of life. So do that, and you'll be able to catch all the great content and videos, the Wednesday Night Warrior and the Trophy Mages, and all the awesome Magic content that Constructed Criticism produces. You can find that all on YouTube. And lastly, if you just want to get in contact with us, you can do so via email, commonknowledgemtg@gmail.com. Send us your emails. We love to hear from you guys, and we'll read them on the show. And maybe your email will influence what we do for a show topic or for a segment like it did today.
I just had a good idea.
Oh, tell me.
Okay, all the listeners. So, say you have a dog that you have to leave at home, and it's a troublesome dog. If you just play the Common Knowledge playlist for your dog, You'll come home, he'll be a better dog, and he'll be better at magic, and we'll get free views. So I actually know someone who does this.
What? Really?
Yeah, you know Turtle?
I thought you were just... Turtle does it?
He turns it on for his dog.
So first off, for everyone at home, our friend's name is Turtle.
Yeah, who has a dog.
He plays YouTube videos for his dog when he leaves?
Yeah, it makes him feel like there's people there.
Oh, interesting.
He doesn't get lonely.
Yes, it does create a sense of security for the dog.
Yeah.
That's interesting. Turtle. I haven't seen Turtle in years.
He plays elves.
He does play elves. That was the last time I saw him. It was when Lead the Stampede got put into Pauper, and he was so excited about elves.
Mm-hmm.
Turtle's the man. And his name's Turtle. I remember for the longest time I didn't know Turtle's real name. Like
None of the viewers do.
The longest time. And they never will know.
I've called him Turtle since 9th grade when I met him.
He was introduced to me as Turtle. And I didn't even bother to ask what his real name was. I was just like, all right, cool. That's dope. I don't even know how I didn't know his name when we were all working at Little Caesars. Maybe he wasn't working at Little Caesars when I got promoted to the shift lead. Because I mean, his name would have been on the schedule unless Mike put it as Turtle.
No, he was only there for I want to say 6 months or something. Anyway, let's wrap this show up.
Turtle Man, where were we?
You were in the middle of, I think, here.
Yeah, so that's one way you can contact us is through our email. You can also contact us through Twitter at CKPodcastMTG. You can find me at bclark_CK. And the Sean, where can you be found?
You can find me on Twitter at Lobbert8. And you can find me on YouTube if you search for Lobbert. I just posted a cool blue-white spells list that runs Delver of Secrets. I don't think it's a finished deck, but I did pretty well with it. So check it out and give me your feedback.
I think it's an interesting deck. I think it shows promise.
It's getting good. I was surprised how well it did.
Cool. Well, longest outro ever, but we're not done yet, so buckle up, everybody. Shout out to the sponsors. Lastly, last thing, we promise, and then you can take us out of your ear holes. PureMTGO.com. Check them out for great articles, podcasts, deck lists, all the good stuff. InkedGaming.com. Use our coupon code CCMTG10 to get a 10% discount at checkout. You can get all the awesome Ink Gaming playmats and sleeves and binders, and they've got some cool stuff. I think mouse pads too, stuff like that. Maybe not mouse pads. Mouse
Gaming mats or
gaming mats are basically just big mouse pads.
Giant, less thick mouse pads.
Yeah, so I was right.
Yeah, you were.
Boom.
Got it.
All right. Bye forever.
And to all of our new viewers out there.